Okay, y'all, this is my haves and the have-nots review. I'm not sure I'm getting all this stuff in order, but I'm going to try to hit on all the big stories and what happened, so I should really just go story by story of what's going on. So let's start off with Veronica. That was a big cliffhanger last week. She walked into the hotel to find her husband coming out of the room with Maggie and to find her son coming out of the room with Landon. So this week, she's like really incensed, and she wants to know why Jeffrey was coming out of this boy's room. That's what she was calling Landon. She's like, "Who are you, boy?" And nobody can get a word in edgewise, and nobody really wants to say anything. And David, being a good father, he tries to lie and say that he called Jeffrey over, but that's not true. David doesn't have a clue why Jeffrey is over there with Landon. So they get outside waiting for the cars to come around, and Veronica's being real entitled and demanding that her car be brought around before anybody else's, and it's just really, really high tension going on. And once again, she asks Landon, "Who are you, boy?" And he says, "You know who I am, we met before." And Maggie tries to interject, and Veronica's like not having it. She goes south side of Chicago on Maggie. She says something, "I'm about 10 seconds off your ass," or something like that. And Maggie's like, okay, she backed off. And so David tries to come down and like really try to, I guess, be sensible with Veronica. He hugs her and she's crying, and she pushes him away, like, "Get away from me," and all this. So it's a lot of emotions going on there. And so she says that Jeffrey's going to ride with her because Jeffrey was going to get a cab. And David said, "Well, no, Jeffrey's going to ride with me." And then she's like, "No, he's riding with me." David's like, "No, he's riding with me." And they're treating Jeffrey like he's a 6-year-old. And of course, Jeffrey is so terrified with his mother, he agrees to ride with her. And David obviously didn't want him in that car with his mother because she was going to really be verbally abusive. And David was aware of this. He's trying to protect his son, but he can't really protect Jeffrey when Jeffrey's like really being so obedient to Veronica and sort of swaying to her will and her demands. And so as far as Landon and Maggie go, they get in their car and they head out to they head off to the campaign office where there was supposed to be a meeting, and Maggie wants to know what was going on. Why was Wyatt in Landon's room? And Landon's like, he's mum, he's not saying anything, not even try to tell any sort of lies. And Maggie's like, okay, so he's gay, talking about Jeffrey. And Landon still won't say anything, and Maggie's just like, okay. And then Landon like says, "You're gonna find out anyway." And Maggie's like, "You're right, I am gonna find out," because that's what Maggie does. She finds everything out, and I'm sure she's gonna be all over this when the time comes. Because if all that comes out about Veronica blackmailing her son, that's not a good thing for a campaign to have going on. That's a campaign killer right there. Okay, and then we go to the highlight of the episode, which is Jeffrey and Veronica's conversation in the car. It was very well acted, very well written, I would say, and it was very awkward, though very uncomfortable. But I think that was the intention of the writing, and I think the actors played to that well, because they both were able to convey that awkwardness and discomfort very well. So they get props for that, both of the actors in that scene. So Veronica wants to know why Landon was in, why Jeffrey was in Landon's room, and he says he's not really saying why he was there. And Veronica wants to know how he knows Landon, and he says, "Well, we met before at a gay bar that Candace took me to." And Veronica's like slamming the steering wheel. She's like, "Damn." And she's like, "Damn that Candace." And so he goes into detail about Veronica wants details about his date with Melissa. And And again, I think Veronica put Melissa up to doing what she did to be, or I think she put her up to being all over Jeffrey. Because Veronica was prodding for details, and Jeffrey was just like kind of saying, well, we ate. And finally, she keeps prodding, and Jeffrey says, she came to my house, and we did it. Are you happy now? And he's like, I did it and I hated it. And Veronica's like, actually, I am happy. And then she said, how many other girls have you been with? And he says, one. And she said, oh, it was your first time. And she's like, you know, I hated my first time too. You know what I did, Jeffrey? Did you hear me, Jeffrey? Did you know what I did? I did it again and again and again. And that's what you will do. You will do it again and again and again until it becomes you. Wow. And this is just a very, very intense scene. And I haven't quite seen anything like this on a television show before. It really delves into how the sort of what's the word I'm looking for? The sort of attitude that parents can impose upon their children for not going in the direction that they want them to. And something that I was reading on Twitter, I was reading some posts, some tweets, and on Twitter is some people are saying, well, Veronica closeted herself or something, and I don't know if that's the direction it will go in, but that would be quite an interesting direction, because she does have this very, very visceral hatred, and perhaps that comes from something within her. Okay, and so as far as the criers go, we see them, and we see them, and Amanda's like being crazy as usual, and she has a few little dust-ups with Celine, and Celine obviously walks around with her little smirk on and stuff, and kind of like being sarcastic with both Amanda and Wyatt, and Wyatt's like, well, you know everything around here, and she's like, I don't snoop. And I'm like, yeah, right, Celine. But anyway, most of the action with the criers was with Jim and Amanda. So with Jim, he's trying to find this guy that he wants to take the fall for Wyatt, for the hit and run. And so this guy ran away from the Malones, and he's talking to Mama Rose on the phone, and she's like, well, he ran away. If he's with anywhere within 7 counties, my men will find him. And so Jim is like, he's expecting her to find him. And then she asks about Candace, what happened to that girl? Is she still bothering you? And he says no. And she said, you should have let us take her out. And Jim's like, well, no, she only needs to learn a lesson. Well, she did not learn the lesson you wanted her to, Jim, because she's about to come after you with a vengeance. Okay. And so, because Candace later, in her scene, she's talking on the phone to Warlock, saying she wants this to go down. She's looking at the campaign, the news, and the reporter talking about the campaign announcement ready to happen the next day, and she said she wants that she wants Warlock to serve up some hood justice to Jim right away. So she didn't learn a lesson at all. Apologies, had to cut away there for a second. Okay, so on to Amanda and Candace. After Candace finishes talking to Warlock, Amanda calls her. And obviously Amanda's kind of wondering where Candace was at, and Candace doesn't detail anything. And basically they just get into talking about Quincy, and Candace starts to look real scared when she hears the name Quincy, and she's even more scared when she finds out that Quincy was at their apartment. And so Amanda is obviously she's off the rails still, and she's talking about she's just saying, she's basically saying she likes Quincy, and Candace is like, Quincy is dangerous, and Amanda's all like, I like dangerous. And she obviously doesn't know what she's doing here. And so, Amanda basically doesn't listen to Candace and she hangs up on her. And right then, Candace has a few things in her apartment, a little air mattress, a TV, and some other bags of stuff. So after she gets off that phone, Candace gathers up that bag of stuff and she's out of there. She doesn't know if Quincy's coming back. And Amanda ends up calling Quincy. And he wants to know if she's found Candy. And Amanda won't tell him because she wants death tattoos. And Quincy's like, you have to kill somebody to do that. And she's like, I know. I have who I want to kill. And Quincy's starting to look, and Quincy's not all there himself, but he's kind of has this little, like, you know, that little grin people get when they know somebody's crazy. And it's like, he's like, well, this chick is crazy. But he wants to find Candy, so he goes along with Bryn. She wants him to come get her, and he's like, well, I don't have a car. And she's like, and I guess she's basically like, I don't care. My parents won't let me have my keys, so I can't come to you. So he says, okay, I'll find some wheels and come get you. And at the end of the episode, he comes there to get her, and she's looking out the window all this time, and Celine sees her. And it's like, what are you looking out the window for? And Amanda's saying, I just want to look out. And then Quincy pulls up in this old-looking car. And Amanda darts out the door, gets in the car, and tells him, drive! And they drive off. And that's how the episode ended. And there was some other stuff in the episode that was kind of like, oh, and I forgot, Detective Byron. So he meets with Jim at the house. And Jim is like, okay, your business with me is finished. You don't need to talk to Hannah LeYoung anymore. And Detective Byron's like looking like, he's looking real hesitant, and Jim picks it up immediately. He's like, oh my God, you like her. And Detective Byron tries to play it off, but Jim's like, hey, you need to stay away from her. There's too much you know about me that she could seduce out of you. And Detective Byron is like, that's not going to happen. And right then when they're talking, Hannah calls him. And she wants to invite him, Detective Byron, to Benny's party, the welcome home party. And Detective Byron's like, yeah, I don't really want to go. I can't go. I have a meeting. And Jim made him put it on speakerphone and answer the phone right in front of him, which kind of comes back to bite Jim. Okay. So, because all of a sudden Celine comes out and says, Mr. Pryor, and Jim tries to cover the phone, but it's too late. Hannah can hear that Detective Byron is over there at the Pryor mansion. It's obvious where he's at. And then Detective Byron tries to reverse course and say, oh, okay, I'll come to the party. And Hannah's like, no, don't bother. You go to your meeting. And Hannah's like, she's putting all this together. You can tell she's putting it together. And so, and then the rest of everything else was, oh, and I didn't talk about Benny. Benny's just been so over the top and animated since he came out of the coma. He didn't act like that before. He was much more low-key and reserved, but he's just like way over the top. I don't know what he's doing, but he's like, and I don't know if that's supposed to be, the writing is sort of saying that the coma changed him or the head injury changed him. I don't know, but he's acting real extra. Okay, and so I hope that I have covered everything, and that is my haves and the have-nots review. There are 2 episodes left until the season finale, and next week looks like it's going to be good too. This week was really good. If you haven't seen the episode yet, I recommend that you watch it because it is very, very good, and the story is moving along, and like I said, next week looks really great. It looks like we're finally going to find out where Candace's baby is or what happened to him. So lots is going to be going on next week. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Deuces.